We are live. How's everything look? Sweet. All right. Gonna let some people get in here. I need some folks to make sure the audio sounds good too, and that you could see all the plugins. Anyone on Instagram, if you could let me know. I'm about to play the song. Let me know how the sound is. There's some sound for you. I'm gonna pull up a plugin. Here's Synoxis Creative Filter. Can you see that? I'm looking. Yeah, you can. Okay, good. Sick. So basically, doing a song breakdown from the other day's stream. Come hang. I wonder if it lets me pin that from this view. It does. Perfect. So I made a song the other day on stream, and it was just like an hour production, and honestly, it wasn't very good. I really struggled with like getting just even like the concept down of what I wanted to make, but what's funny is I spent the next day producing this track and finished the whole song basically, and then on the plane to Atlanta today I actually finished the song minus like the final mix and master, because pro tip, do not mix and master on a plane. That makes no sense, but it sounds pretty good. So we'll do a quick playthrough first, and then I just decided that I would kind of, since I didn't make it on the stream, I would show everyone kind of like group by group, sound by sound, my thought process and how it came together to the best of my ability, and then I'll answer questions. And I only have one monitor because I'm in a hotel, so let me know if the sound is bad or if you have any questions. Just be patient because I can't really check Instagram live. I have TikTok up on my phone, and then I have Instagram on a tab, so I have to go back and forth basically. But I'll break it down, and then I'll probably post this on YouTube or something, but streaming vertical for now. So, all right, let's see what we made the other day. I'm gonna play the whole version, which includes the extended portions, not even just the verse. So I'll play it through once here. One could use some sort of vocal element, but just as an instrumental, it's already pretty fire. No complaints. Room for a vocal, which is kind of what you have to do. You can't overcomplicate it. That's the goal. A little extra build for drop 2. I have been producing technically for 14 years, but I did not take it seriously at all until about 2018. I did it for giggles. I was more of a DJ, so I was just like, what's the point kind of thing. But as we started an artist project and stuff, I was like, actually I should probably learn this so I can contribute, because Zach, our other half on Syence, started as a producer, became a DJ. All right, so that's the track. Let's break it down. I'll go group by group and then sound by sound. So first things first, the beautiful thing with house music for us is how we sidechain. So really all we do for sidechain is we take a really small click from the kick, put it at the front. I actually need to move this kick over probably, because you could see there it's actually not even really sidechaining much, but that's okay. And then we just put it on every kick basically. And the way we sidechain that is we have, in each group, we have a Pro C2 sidechain, and then the threshold basically is what it maps to. You could see here maps to the sidechain. So for melody, I don't go super hard on the sidechain. I go about like 60%. The bass group, much higher. That's like, I don't know, 85, 90%, sometimes 100. But on this track in particular, 100 didn't sound great. And then effects, I go really, really light, like 45. So that's basically just saying every time this clip hits, which is a muted channel, it's gonna duck all the sounds to the kick and the snare so that the drums cut through more. And Zach will come in and make some adjustments to that, but that's the first track. The second track, or group I should say, is all the drums, and we'll go one by one here. It's nothing super scientific, but this is what they sound like soloed roughly. Really basic. I did not go crazy on this. The only difference is then we have the build over here. It just does build stuff. And then in the second drop, I added a ride. So you'll hear that. Nope. Without it. So it just fills up the drum space a little bit more. And then what I did, just to make the extended versions a little bit more interesting, I added these 2 layers as well, which are just little like rhythmic things, just to make the extended not feel super boring. I've been trying to simplify my drums more. I used to get really aggressive with loops and stuff, and it just got like really messy. So unless I feel like it really needs more for some reason, like this simple loop with like very little adjustment honestly just felt good with the track because of where everything else was adjusting. So kick wise, I don't do it in MIDI like ever. I basically just do samples, and then I added a little bit of EQ work just to boost and reduce to make room for the bass. And then I have Synology's creative filter in here, which I'm just doing some filter automation. Like in the verse sections, I'm filtering it down so it's not so intense, but then in the drops, I want the full effect of it. Also on the drum group, we have a filter to filter all the drums out. You can see here, it filters. And that's just to like exit the drop. It's basically a transition effect. So that as you get out of the drop, instead of it just abruptly being no drums and stuff, it slowly fades out, basically. Let's make sure there's no questions, cool. Then the snares, same things, just some splice samples or samples from sample packs. I also have just an offbeat hat here. This is just keeping like the basic rhythm. And then I have it mixed with the shaker loop. That's all I did. We may add a little bit more, but it sounded fine. Then we have, okay. From the extended portion, here is what I added. Just for some variation. So you'll hear it here. Just variation. And then I also have this little cool thing that I've used before. It's just another like rhythmic thing. And I only do it in the extended. I tried doing it in the drop and stuff, but I couldn't really hear it, and it honestly just didn't need it. Then we have a crash. And on most of these drums for now, I don't do like super intense processing. Zach usually does, who does more of our engineering work. But I EQ out low end and stuff like that for things that don't need it. And then I do some like creative filtering, like on the snares. Yeah, you can see here I have like in this section, it's just like filtered down. There's no low end in the kick, and that's so that in the verse and stuff, again, it's less intense. And then when the drop hits, you'll hear the difference, right? So you heard the off, full snare, full kick, not full snare, full kick, right? That just helps create variations, and it's important when you're building out your arrangement to have like variance and build and then calm down throughout the track. I think when you're trying to create like a journey, you have to go up and down. And there's a lot of ways to that. It's removing elements, adding elements, filtering up, filtering down. Like, I mean, there's so many different ways you could do it, but those are two of the most basic ones that I do most of the time when we're building out the arrangement of a track. I think that's all I wanted to say about the drums. Drums are like, I'm pretty boring with drums. It's like EQ stuff. Here's the snare build. I didn't, again, just a loop. I'm not getting fancier. All I need is a snare roll. Some people will build their own snare rolls, and then I have Endless Smile that's just creating space with it. And honestly, I should probably do that just to get it faded out a little more. Yeah, and then I had one more, here we go. I added an additional build to make drop twos build a little more energetic. Again, this one has like a down lifter in it and a riser. Rather than do that all myself, I was like, you know what? This is exactly what I would build myself anyway, so why not use the loop? No issue with that. I'm not compressing the sweeping effects like white noise. I'm sidechaining it. So I'm sidechaining it to the kick just to, yeah, here, I'll show you that. I'll skip ahead really quick here, just saw your question. I use the compressor as a sidechainer. And the reason I do that is I will solo it for you and show you what it sounds like. It's just like minor pulsing. If you don't do that, that's just static. I just personally like when it kind of meshes to the beat a little bit. I don't like if I turn this all the way up, that's really aggressive, right? So I don't need it that aggressive. Where I do need it that aggressive typically is the bass. So with the bass, I have it a lot more aggressive, you can see here. That's like no side chain. That's a lot. That's even more. So it's kind of a preference thing, like Elenium, for example. I think he also uses LFO tool, but when he does his chords, he has like the kick hit, then this really aggressive, the chords come in, so there's just a huge side chaining effect. I don't know if he does it through a compressor or through LFO tool or both, but he chooses this creative dipping effect. I go a little more basic just because that's all I feel like I need. So it's not that I'm compressing it, it's that basically. Okay, so that is the drum group. I renamed my harmony group to RIP. This is the template Zach made like 7 years ago, and we used to process harmony as a group, but honestly, like unless it's like a chord progression, like piano or pads, I just never end up putting anything in here. For some reason, I just always stick to melody. He has the option to move it in here if he wants for when he does the engineering mix and master work, but I just end up doing it in melody. So let's play the melody group solo. There's a lot going on here. We'll play drop 1 first, and then I'll show you the differences between drop 1 and drop 2, and then how I arrange this. So that's drop 1. The only sounds I added, I have this number 26 here play at the beginning, and then I add 20 halfway through. So here's 26. It's like a rising vocal stutter. And then 20 is this. It's like a top layer. And then here's all of it together. All right, let me see if there's anything else to point out that's like weird. Okay, we'll go one by one. So there's kind of 2 ideas that I typically have when I'm doing melody sounds, basically. And it's either creating like a lead melody, and typically I have between 2 to 4 lead sounds, where it's creating that like thing that you would theoretically sing along or hum along in the song. And sometimes it's one lead really dominating with like a couple counter melodies. Sometimes there's a call and response where the first part's one lead and it's the next lead comes in to counter it. I wish I had examples to show you, but that's kind of the 2 approaches I typically take. And then any other sounds in melody are more like foundation, like creating the like soundscape atmosphere, where technically it's playing a melody, maybe it's just repeating the root note or something, but it's definitely more in the background, just creating some melodic like texture rather than being the focus. And you have to be careful in your mix, because if you have your foundation sounds and your atmosphere sounds super loud competing with the lead, then the lead loses its focus, and I struggle with that a lot. Sometimes I definitely just put too much volume in, as simple as that sounds, and then all of a sudden I'm really struggling. So I have to be careful with that, and so hopefully you could tell in this melodic group like what I'm doing. But this first sound that I came up with was typically how I write songs is I'll find some sort of loop or something that just inspires me so I can get a sense of the sonic direction I'm going, and then I'll start writing in MIDI. So basically every sound you see here I wrote in this order. So like 17 I came up with, and I wrote some MIDI here, then I created this bass sound group, or brass sound I should say, then I added like 2 more texture layers at the end just to fill it up. And that's just typically how I end up doing it. So this was the loop that inspired me to start writing the song. And it's definitely, again, a foundation song. It's technically playing a melody, but it's really just a consistent stutter, right? And I think I changed the melody of it here. I chopped it up differently to match the bass line. Yeah, there you go. It goes up there. I was like, I thought I changed it. Yeah. So just background noise. It's pretty low in the mix. Did some basic processing. So we have this thing in my audio racks. Oh, I don't have my hard drive plugged in, but it's called bass new. You can see the bass in the end. And it's basically an EQ saturator, OTT, no treble. So we're not compressing the high end. And then I leave it usually around 50%. And then I do one more EQ. Lately, I've been adding Roar from Ableton, which is another like distortion tool, and I usually put it around where the saturator is, and that's just been giving a lot more flavor to the mid and high end for all my sounds. So I haven't saved it as a rack yet, but I typically do drag it in, not on this sound because it's more tucked in the background anyway. But I use this rack for basically everything. Sometimes I switch the OTT no treble with just regular OTT, which is in the multi-band dynamics right here, but it just depends. So the next sound is where I think a lot of the magic happens. Basically, I just messed around in MIDI and kind of wrote in a bunch of notes. Like I literally just manually wrote this all in and was like, this kind of sounds good. And then I moved things up and down. And there's actually a secret thing I did, which is not that secret, I guess, but it sounded kind of bad at first before I added in this echo. So I'll get to that in a second, but here is that sound and I'll play the drop version of it. Yeah, like the exact palette of sound I'm going for. And the only things to note here writing wise is it's pretty much the same melody throughout. The only difference is like to create a little bit of variation in the second 8 bars, rather than ending like that, I actually go up a little bit higher. And that's really just to not make it the exact same thing twice. It's already fairly good, and it's not like the main lead, but it does need some variation because that. Then in the breakdown section, I just repeat this. And this is like right after the post drop. So here's like the post drop. And that's just to build a little tension, kind of chill things out, and then bring it back into the main melody, which is here. I also do that with the goal of building tension in build number 2. So I stick to this root chord, the implied chord here, and I don't show the melody until the drop. So, and it's slowly building. I'm filtering it up. I'm also endless smiling it. I start the endless smile up, it comes down, then it rises up to get some air, and then it's in fully there. Yeah, those science emojis slap. I think that's all for that lead. It's definitely my favorite sound, I think, besides maybe the brass sound, which I'll get to in a sec. Okay, so I did that. Then I wrote the counter melody. So the counter melody is just another lead-focused portion of the melody group to complement and keep things a little spicy. And it's that sound. Here's the proper context, sorry. And this one I did just repeat twice because it's just a counter melody and the variation's already happening on the other sound. And then I also use it kind of as a texture layer as well in the background in this like pre-build-up section, and then it comes back in again there. So here's the two sounds together. And then here is it again where, you know, you can use your same lead sounds, like I said earlier, as a texture sound, where this old sound is going to be more of the leading melody element, but I still wanted this sound to be tucked away and just kind of teased in there just reminding the listener like that sound's still there and still part of the story, basically. So let's filter down for this section. I'm just repeating it over and over, just continuously building tension, and then it comes out here for the actual build. So in context. Ideally, a vocal would be there because it does need that. Still keep that all in mind. But what VSTs do I use? Mostly Serum. You can't see my screen because I only show in the middle of it, but mostly Serum, Diva, augmented voices. I use Arcade, Acid V, BA1, Baby Audio 1, Omnisphere, Prophet 5V, Sky Keys, very rare. That's about it. Honestly, I think less is more. Like, learn the ones that you like, stick to those, and get good at them, and get presets and sounds for those and worry about those. Because if you try to boil the ocean, it can get frustrating. It is nice to have some variety, because if you get sick of Serum or something, like, it would suck to only have that, and you're just like, ugh, I don't want to keep doing this. But Omnisphere 2, I think, is coming out, by the way. But yeah, Indigo, honestly, there's a couple ways to write counter melodies. I mean, you could learn, like, music theory is important here to even know, like, what makes sense. But to be honest, it's like a lame answer, but I just do it by ear now. Like, if I'm writing the MIDI myself, I'll drag around notes and I'll just see what works. Another way to try to write counter melodies is I'll get a splice loop sometimes of like a synth 4-bar, 8-bar, 16-bar, whatever, and just test things. Like, I'll just throw it over my current melody and see if that sounds good. And if it comes close, you can do this thing in Ableton where, do I have any? Here you go. You can export the sample, you can convert it to melody, and I'll do that as like a starting point where it's like, okay, maybe I like 60% of these notes, but I want to make it my own sound, and I don't want to use this loop. Maybe you do want to use the loop too, but in this case, we'll pretend. And unfortunately, this one's super boring. It's just the same note over and over, but at least it's a rhythm, right? We're saying, okay, it's like one little break, done, done, done. So it's like, it can give you rhythm ideas when you do this, and if it's an actual melody and not a repeating note, it's a drone note here, but it'll give you melody ideas, and you might say, you know what, I want this C to go down, I want to shift this over, and I want to delete this note, right? And it's like, okay, now I have my own melody that I technically took from a loop, but I made it my own, and it helped me get out of that writer's block of like, what might sound good as a counter melody here. But honestly, it is a lot of ear training because, you know, again, you can get really overcomplicated here. I would say my thought process in this counter was I really wanted this first note just to be like a little bit of a down hit. So we'll play really quick. So down hit. Then it has like a bit of a space. And then my personal approach to counters is I think I like doing a lot of down hits on the 1. So 1, the 5, the next phrase, right? And then to end each section is when you can kind of get creative and do notes. And in this case, I'm not matching the notes here. Like, you could see this is a bunch of eighth notes, or is it 16 note, 16 note, 8 note, whatever. Either way, but I'm only hitting on these 3 notes. So it still kind of fits into the rhythm in this case, but you don't have to necessarily have the notes hit on the rhythm as long as it feels like it's not clashing. But in this case, it does sound good because it happens to hit on those same notes. So I'm basically just accenting that note, this note, and this note because I happen to hit them there. So in this case, it's pretty lined up, right? But I don't know, it's a lot of trial and error. That's just my thought process when I make it. But really, the number one most important thing is trust your ear and do what sounds good. And like, to be honest, when I started writing seriously in 2018, most of my decisions were terrible, right? It's like, I knew I was writing a counter melody and I thought it sounded good. And then I go back and listen to those ideas and I'm just like, oh my God, they're so bad. But live and learn. It's just keep creating. Like finish as many songs as you can because you will only get better. Yeah, same, definitely same key. Unless you're like a really complex like music theorist or something, but I am not. I'm super basic. So Charlotte wants this. I want Charlotte. Yeah, would love to go to Charlotte. We're trying. Okay, so that's my spiel about counter melodies. All right, next sound I did was this second melody. So one of my big theories is I want drop one to feel different to drop two, and typically the way that I do that is I add a couple more energetic elements to drop two, and in this case I added just this sound as a verse sound filtered down, so really subtle. And then in the second half of drop two, it's kind of like the evolution of drop one. So in context. So in itself, that's kind of another counter melody, but it's much more simple. Like, again, if I was doing crazy melody runs, it would probably get really busy, and that's not how I write. I'm not that good of a writer, I guess. But yeah, this just adds a little bit more harmonic elements. Think of it like an orchestra, right? Sometimes you have just the trumpet and the trombonist playing, but then you hear the brass come in, then the flutes come in. That's kind of what we do in our, or at least in this song in our writing, is we're kind of building our own little digital orchestra, right? Where you might have like just these two sounds playing at first, but then the flutes come in, then the trombonist, right? And it just adds that texture and power and energy. And then eventually it all fades out, just like an orchestral song, right? Where it might have its climax, and then slowly but surely instruments go quiet, instruments fade out, et cetera, et cetera. So if you think of it like a digital orchestra, that's a good way, I think, to put it on how you can develop and add additional energy. But you just got to be careful, because if all these MIDIs were just doing crazy shit, it would sound super complicated. But I mean, just something as simple as offbeat note can just add that extra texture in something as dense as this, right? And one of my favorite producers, Nahil Young, he's a great producer, makes similar music to us. He said he was on our science lab show, and he was like, one of my favorite instruments is silence or space. And I think that's another good way to think about it too. Like, you don't have to have a note hitting and creating a melodic moment all the time. Like, you can hear after those bass hits, it kind of feels silent, right? Or the brass hits, like space. Like, take it in. Then it comes back. Like, letting it breathe. I mean, there's still sounds playing, right? But like, letting some of the stuff breathe is okay. You don't need every sound playing notes 24/7, or it can just get really, really complicated. Thank you for the compliment. Okay, so that is the kind of like second drop evolution. Again, we use it in the verse here, filtered. Now this is the magic here. This is the brass sound. So I'll solo the group first. It's 3 different layers, and I'll show you each one and kind of explain why I did it. And then it just changes notes here. So I'd say the main layer, there's 2 like main layers and a third one that's more just giving it some extra power, but here's the first layer that I wrote. More of like a digital brass. So it's got a little extra like bass tone to it, I guess. And then this is actually a sample of a brass that sounded more like a real brass and added a lot of the high end oomph, the mid-high stuff. And together they sound like this. And I leave these ones dry because it helped it, or sorry, dry, shorter, because it kind of helps them punch through the mix more. When they're super long, it just gets a little washed out and too like reverbed, basically. And then it's hard to like hear contextually that there's like a bass hit happening. The third layer is this more like subby deep sound, I guess. Someone's calling me, that's funny. Is it Zach? Oh my god, I bet it's Zach. Hilarious. Zach just got to our hotel, guys. Let me pause streaming really quick. Hold up. That is so funny. I need to get my video back on. Okay, Zach literally got to the hotel and they're like calling me from the front desk like, hey, can we let this guy into your room? I was like, yeah, please give him the key. So sorry about that. Okay, we're back. So we are on the bass sound, and this is just to add that low end oomph. So all together again. That's just to give it a little more digital oomph on the low end. And then I also tease it in. Oh, sorry. I filter it down here in like the pre-verse section just to kind of tease it. And I added a little reverb to make it a little more airy, just to let them know like this sound's coming later, get excited. And then other than that, it just comes back in and drop two, nothing different there. All right. Zach again, hold on. No, I think I had the door locked. Oh, yeah, locked. All right. Zach's here. Come say hi, Zach, if you want. That's so fun. All right. There you go. Yeah, cool. All right. The last two leads are going to be more of those texture background sounds, not lead melody sounds. So here's the first one, and this is from Arcade. Arcade is freaking awesome. It's like, it's literally a VST that has like infinite amounts of sounds and types of sounds. So I highly recommend you get this. There are these things called lines that have, this one's top tier, organically produced vocal stacks. This is grit, atmosphere, and melancholy. Modern pop sounds. This is more vocal stuff. This is hip hop beats, right? And you could like go in the lines. You download this one. What else can you do here? Once it opens up, I'll show you. If it ever downloads, there you go. And then basically, you just play these different sounds, and you can go in and edit them too with all these various like effects and stuff. And you can go into even like the individual sound. I could like start it later. I could pan it. I mean, like there's just all sorts of different shit you could do. So I don't know. It's just like a really creative tool, again, to help you get out of those writer's blocks where you're just like, I don't want to write in Serum anymore or something. But I use it a lot for texture, background stuff. And this one I use Distant Voices, which is like super ethereal vocal background stuff. And so here's what those are. Which is kind of like the main vocal thing in the song so far, right? It happens right before the drop. And then I also have a second version of that, I guess, but a different melody. So again, another sound that's kind of serving as a counter melody, but honestly, it's more of just like a texture background sound. So in context, you can hear it comes right before the drop. Here we go. And right here. And then I also use it in like the verse sections or the in between the drop sections, just as like additional context to keep the song moving. And these ones are more filtered down to be a little more ominous. And then it happens again before build 2, but not before drop 2. And then it goes into the build as you guys have heard. So I think that's a good one. I ended up adding it into the second half of the drop. I actually just realized it got filtered down on actually. Oh no, we're good. So that's that one. And then the last melody sound I added was the one I showed you guys earlier at the beginning, but just for those that weren't here. It's another like vocal stutter that kind of evolves as it comes in. How did I make it? Honestly, I made it in a day somehow on Ableton. with a lot of different plugins and love for Halcyon, which is a venue in San Francisco. That's why it's named that. But and this is again another sound that does have its own melody, obviously, but it's tucked in just to fill the space and kind of create some variance. And for this one, I have it coming at the second half of drop 1 to have drop 1 evolve just towards the end. No sauce. And then it plays all of drop 2 to again have drop 1 be slightly different from drop 2, so that drop 2 has more energy when it comes in compared to drop 1, because again, we're trying to evolve the track over time. So in context, I'll play it in the drop 2 here. I think my favorite thing about that song is, or two favorite things, is the tone. The tone is perfect for this kind of track's palette of sound, and then I also really like that it's more of a rising effect, so it kind of adds some waviness to the track, I guess. And then, all right, so now we're on to the bass group. There's two main bass elements, basically. There's just this like respace. Autopan is slept on. I didn't even use autopan on it. It just had autopan basically built in. So, no, I did use autopan. You're right. Confusing with other some. Yeah, I like autopan for stutters. That, and there's like this, I forget the name of it, but there's another one. Panman. There you go. No, not Panman. The tremolator. Yeah, for like stutter effects. All right, that's the Reese. Again, still using our little bass audio rack. Really nothing crazy. Filtering down some of the high end because I'm just making it for everything else. It's really simple. I wonder if there's any other processing I did. But I use Soothe a lot. Soothe and the harsh synth is a good one. There's also one that's like a de-muddying for basses. Yeah, not silent. Hold on. De-mudding the bass. Those are my two favorite presets there for Soothe, and it just like gets rid of frequencies that are annoying, basically. I use Valhalla for reverb in some cases. I use that creative filter you guys have seen. Just think there was like any other weird things I did. There's Roar. Now, if there's any questions on any of this stuff, let me know, but it should be Hamza. I can't see the Instagram comments, Hamza. All right. And the other bass, the main bass is the drop bass. It's just a rolling bass because I wanted to create like more of a groove in the drop than a kind of a more boring Reese, I guess. And it's just 2 layers. This is the sub one. I don't know if you guys can hear it on a phone, but it's just low end. It's like, yeah, 530 and below. Then I have more of the high end. And that's getting rid of some of the sub frequencies, so it's more of a blended sound. Favorite Valhalla is Vintage Verb for me. And then what I like to do for outros of songs is I just take the root note of the bass, and it helps you kind of like end the song in an extended mix type way. So here's like the end of the drop into where I just repeat the root note. Kind of keeps it in, and then I end up reducing the bass even more to be more simple by only hitting a few notes here. So if you're looking for tips on how to make an extended mix, there's a couple ideas. Because with extended mixes, it's all about how you can mix it live, and you want.
What's the last name on the Wi-Fi?
It's Harvey's last name, which is Ren, R-E-N. All right, and then the only other bass I added was this pre-drop bass, which does this. And I just wanted to do something really sick before drop 2, just to create, like, if you're at a club, just some weird aha moment where you're like, oh shit, what was that? And then the drop comes back, so I'll play it in context now. last group here is effects. I honestly am super lazy with effects, just like drums. I just use samples and whatever sounds good sounds good. I have like a bunch of different downlifters, stuff like that for when the beginning of a section happens, basically. I have risers that lead into those sections. Here's one. Filtering out the low end on all this stuff, really basic. Here's another riser, just give you an idea of like the different textures. That one's cool. Downlifter there. This sound is freaking my favorite sound. I've been using it in every song recently. Sounds so good. And then this is nothing crazy there. And then I used Lighter by West End as a reference, mostly because sometimes when I go into producing a track, I like knowing the arrangement I'm going to make rather than figuring it out on the fly. So what I did here, you could see at the very beginning, is I looked for like, okay, he does a verse, then a verse with the drums, like so verse part 2, then he goes out into a build and then the drop happens. And I just marked those here to like take the thought process of like how I want to arrange this song. And then eventually I'll probably use this as like a mix master, kind of like balancing the levels and stuff, so it's as close as possible before I hand it off to Zach, who can make it perfect, basically. And so yeah, that's basically everything in this track. All I have on here for mastering at the moment, which isn't mastering, is just a limiter, and I actually didn't even do the punchy preset I normally do. So that's pretty much it. We'll listen to it from verse 1 more time and then call it for those that didn't hear it earlier. Should probably unmute stuff. For references, just pick a song you like and make that your reference. Like, that's really it. Like, Lighter by West End is like kind of similar, kind of not, but I just like the song a lot, so it's like, all right, that's my reference for now. It doesn't have to be perfect. about wraps it up. We got a show in Atlanta tonight for Halloween at Top Wagyu Steakhouse. Get a free Wagyu steak dinner before. Living the dream. Zach just got here, so time to hang out and catch up since we don't live in the same city anymore. But thanks to all for tuning in. Shoot us a DM if you have any questions about any of this. I'm going to see if I can get the full recording and drop it on YouTube as well, even though it's vertical. I don't really care. As long as it's there for everyone to look at and digest at your own pace. But thanks for the engagement. So many likes on TikTok. Wow, almost 1,000 likes on TikTok. Instagram came in hot with the comments. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon.